We still haven't had anything official from Ubisoft in regard to the third DLC expansion since their July must-pull teaser, which is really odd actually, because there is an encyclopedia worth of information that has been found in the game files and has been located thanks to Pella, and more info seems to be added by Ubisoft after every 5-week update, and so I'm told it is pretty much there, hiding in plain sight if you know where to look, which is actually quite bamboozling to why that is the case. So I'm going to break down all of the info that has been found by our very own community Jomsvik in Pella, so we can have a good speculative chinwag about it, including the suspected new DLC name, the new achievements for it, some roaming bosses, and lots more. So just in case, spoiler alert inbound here folks, and let's have a good gander at what we've got this week. Now in terms of a swift recap of what Pella has found so far, it looks like we're going to be heading to the realm of Svartalfheim as Odin after Valka kind of brings back some sort of emotional and mental trauma to Eivor in the woods just outside Ravensthorpe, and that's kind of perhaps similar to what we've already seen with Folke and what she did to Sigurd during the storyline, and thanks to Meh for reminding me of that, by the way. That kind of seems to make sense to what Pella has found here. And Svartalfheim is actually home to the Light Elves and the Dwarves, and when we do arrive in this realm, it becomes very apparent that we're actually searching for Odin's kidnapped son Baldur. It seems that we end up reluctantly joining the Dwarven rebellion against the invading forces of the Muspels and Jotuns, as the Dwarves state that they can actually help Odin find Baldur, but on the condition that they help the Dwarves fight off the Muspels and Jotuns. And the reason why the Muspels and the Jotuns are invading is because they believe that somewhere hidden in Svartalfheim is a weapon that can actually be used against Asgard and bring about Ragnarök, and that's where we are really at the moment in terms of this very speculative theory surrounding this DLC, which is of course all thanks to the hard work of Peda. So now that we're all on the kind of same speculative page, and with the idea of Ragnarök seemingly becoming a more real threat highlighted by this Muspel and Jotun invasion, this all seems to line up quite nicely with the name of the DLC that Peda has located, and it's called Assassin's Creed Dawn of Ragnarok, and it is specifically named in the game files as such, with all of these achievements that we're going to talk about in a second referencing the expansion namesake as Assassin's Creed Dawn of Ragnarok. Now there's also a couple more interesting things to note here. First of all, it seems that they want players to jump into this expansion straight away, which we briefly discussed in the previous video, and this kind of makes sense really from a business point of view, as they don't want people to have to then spend hours and hours of main game content in Valhalla before they actually give this expansion a go if they've just gone ahead and purchased it. And we've actually got a game entry here which states that we'll have the choice to boost Eivor to a higher power level of 340, where we're going to be awarded skill points, Raven Clan armor, Varen's axe, and the Raven shield. And this action is actually irreversible and will drastically reduce the difficulty of encounters in Norway and England. So my key takeaway here is that if you're yet to purchase Valhalla, or you have purchased it and haven't played it in ages and haven't leveled up to 340 but do want to give this new DLC a go, you'll have the option to boost yourself up to the appropriate level of 340, but you will become overpowered for lower regions like Norway and certain story arcs of England if you haven't yet finished them. And Peda has also found reference to these mythical hordes, which are noted as being able to reward players who've actually achieved significant progress in the main game and actively engaged with Valhalla over the last 12-month period. So it seems that if you've completed all of the content that's been released since launch, that you'll get 5 mythical horde map locations added to your map and inventory that you can then find in Svartalfheim. And I actually like this a lot personally, and I can see this being used in some sort of marketing material going forward as a way to encourage players to jump back into Valhalla, complete the game or certain parts of the game, and then pick up some sort of exclusive reward in the new DLC if they do plan to play it. And Peda also thinks that the gear that we pick up in Svartalfheim will have a real world equivalent back in England. So essentially, if we loot something in Svartalfheim, we'll be able to then get it back in England. And I just hope that this is some sort of exclusive, unique armor set and not just 5 different tattoos for playing Valhalla over the last 12 months, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Now let's talk about some achievements, because they've been found by Peda in the game files, but I just want to give a quick shout out to Jonathan, who's already whipped up a video about these. So if you do speak French, I'd really encourage you to go and check his video out. There's lots of cool information in there, and it is definitely worth your time, so the link's down below. But achievement wise, we've got 10 here, and I'm going to pop them all on your screen right now so you can kind of see in full at what we've got. But let's talk about a few of particular interest to us here, and the first one is Over the Hills, where we actually complete all of the territories of Svartalfheim in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, so kind of confirming that we're on the right tracks here. And we've also got the Ashes of Svartalfheim, where we actually complete the Meteor campaign, which also taps into that kind of Meteor DLC leak that we actually picked up at the start of the year. So looking pretty solid, and also backing up what Peda has found out for us previously. We've also got the Huga Incarnate achievement, where we fully upgrade Odin's bracer that allows us to use Odin's powers, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this shortly. And we've also got It's All in the Wrist, where we kill 30 enemies with the Tiga weapon, and that is a halberd spear that Peda has also found in the game files, and I suspect this may be our legendary weapon here in this DLC. Now another one of interest is called the Seer Sepulchre achievement, and a Seer of course being the Asgardian gods, and Sepulchre, which is actually a word used to describe someone who enjoys exploring and studying caves. That is not for me for sure, but this does kind of make sense, as this achievement is all about discovering dwarven shelters in Svartalfheim, which are actually noted as fast travel points as previously found by Peder, and where the Dwarven Rebellion seems to be taking place across the 3 regions of this Svartalfheim realm. Now, final one to mention here, it's called See No Evil, where we'll teleport, assassinate 2 enemies and then fly away, and this is actually in reference to Odin's abilities, where we'll be using the teleport infusion spell to teleport next to enemies using our bow, assassinate them, and then use the Raven form spell to change into a raven and fly away. And we've actually done a video with a full breakdown of all of the abilities that Peder has found, so definitely check it out for more info if that is of interest to you. Now, big shout out to Pascal Palace here, who's a German Assassin's Creed video creator. He's a top bloke, and he actually mentioned to me in conversation that historically, when the achievements for the DLC appear in the game files after an update, the DLC actually launches 30 to 40 days after it, and this actually happened with the Wrath of the Druids and the Siege of Paris respectively, which kind of hints to me that the DLC may be close to being playable, and that's actually got me thinking the cogs are turning, the mental gymnastics are occurring, and could we actually receive this DLC before Christmas and 5 weeks after the 1.4 update, which is going to be the Oscaria or Wild Hunt Festival, and that's actually suspected to be released around the 9th to the 16th of November. And we've always picked up a DLC expansion shortly after a festival's released, which actually lines up quite nicely with what we've got going on here. Meaning, could this potentially drop mid-December and take advantage of the holiday window for increased sales from a business point of view? And that also makes sense with the level scaling feature that we mentioned at the start of the video, where Ubisoft would want to get people into the DLC quickly without restrictions and signed on to a new season pass. Now, that is very speculative guesstimations from me there, and you guys know I love some speculation, but it is definitely worth considering. Also, if you speak German, by the way, definitely check out Pascal's channel if you haven't already done so. Great quality videos and a really nice dude. And by the way, folks, if you have picked up any value or learned anything new in the video at all, a very swift like down below would really help me out a lot. These videos do take a lot of time, and it's a great way to show you support, so thank you very much. Now, Odin's Bracer, we've discussed it several times before, and it's speculated to be the device given to Odin by the dwarves, and it's used to collect Huga or spirits from specific fallen enemies to then spend on Odin's abilities. Pretty much like a mana bar that you would use to kind of produce spells, essentially. Thing is though, Peder has found reference to these spells potentially being transferable back into the real world. So for example, there's this explosive retreat spell in Svartalfheim that allows us to jump backwards and cause a thunderbolt to strike the ground, dealing damage to everybody in the vicinity. Whereas back in England, we can replicate this spell, but instead of lightning, we'll get a fire explosion, which kind of makes sense to me. Now, not only that though, because Peder's found numerous references on how we actually upgrade this Odin's Bracer, so we're able to use more than one spell while we're in combat. The reason I say that is because it looks like when we actually enter Svartalfheim and get given the Bracer by the dwarves, we're only able to use one Odin spell or one Odin power. But as we upgrade the Bracer, we'll have access to potentially 3 or 4 spells while we're in combat if we do have the Huga. Now, it looks like we're going to be able to get this Huga by defeating worthy bosses of Odin, such as the giant raven here, where it's noted in the game files that once it drops this giant feather, we'll be able to then return it to some sort of dwarven blacksmith to then upgrade our Odin Bracer. And the same thing here goes for the Muspel Flamekeeper, who's going to provide us with this living spark, or the Icy Vein picked up from a Jotun warlord. So it looks like these mini boss fights, which are going to be challenging, are going to be rewarding us with the ability to upgrade our Odin spell so we can use more abilities when we're in combat. And I actually think that we're going to be seeing a return of these mini boss fights or roaming bosses similar to that of the Zealots or the Mercenaries in previous games here, as Peder has found further reference to Angrboda's Wolfpack, which are 5 elite groups of soldiers that are laying low somewhere in Svartalfheim, where we'll actually have to rescue dwarves as kind of mini side quests around the world, and in return we get intelligence from the dwarves of where these wolf packs are, which we can then go down and hunt them and kill them. The same thing kind of applies here for Sunmara's champions, who have actually sent her elite squads to eliminate Odin, and they roam the Svartalfheim world but also arrive as reinforcements from Muspel camp alarms. Presumably we're raiding them, which does sound fantastic, quite similar to the Far Cry 6 mechanic we've picked up recently, which makes sense. And Sunmara is actually the consort of the fiery Muspel king called Suta, by the way, so this all adds up quite well as well. And to spice things up even further, Peder's found reference to dwarven opportunists who, when killed, will reward us with some intelligence about wealth and secrets dotted around Svartalfheim. And in fact, this all makes even more sense, and I keep saying it all makes sense because it genuinely does, because Yor had a recently good interview with Jose, the post-launch producer of Valhalla, who did say to Yor that the Zealot type roaming bosses will be returning, but just not in the way that we would expect, and we'll actually see the core of the system used in a completely different context, which I think is exactly what we've just described here. And I've got to say, folks, this does sound like a lot of fun. Whether it will be good or not, we're just going to have to wait and see, but I'm definitely game for it. And I've also linked yours video down below on the off chance that you haven't seen it, by the way. So definitely check it out. Very much worth your time. Now, some of you may have seen the concept art, which is believed to be Muspelheim by Ubisoft concept artist Donglu Yu, but it does look like we're going to be raiding within Svartalfheim, as Peder has actually found another entry for upgrading Odin's bracer, and that's actually through obtaining Silica during raids and then spending this Silica at the Dwarven blacksmith shelter to then upgrade our bracer, as well as the items that we've actually picked up from these mini bosses. It also states that we can actually extract Silica from a Silica machine by starting a raid and then calling an NPC from our crew to help, meaning that this would be the substitute for the door and chest animations that we actually see in the raids at the moment. Now, Silica is a natural substance found in a variety of most rocks, but specifically sand and clay. It's actually used as a major construction of materials such as glass, brick, concrete, and mortar, so it's a valuable resource across a myriad of different industries. But some of you AC Origin pioneers may recall that we've already come across Silica before in the AC universe. It was a collectible picked up by Bayak throughout your playthrough, which you could then spend at tombs and pyramids across Egypt. In fact, this is actually how you unlock the Isu armor, by collecting 50 Silica glass shards and then submitting it at the pyramid. So this looks to be returning here in the Dawn of Ragnarok, represented as some sort of currency obtained in raids to then spend at Dwarven blacksmiths to upgrade our bracer instead of the settlement buildings back in Ravensthorpe, because of course I don't think we're going to be having a Ravensthorpe settlement in Svartalfheim. Also, longship wise, Peder has also found reference to Freya's ship, which is described as being able to fit into the pocket and expand before your very eyes in Svartalfheim when called upon. And Freya is also the son of the sea god Njord, so that also adds up quite nicely there. Now, we've also got the pleasure here of hearing directly from our very own community Yoms Viking Peder, who wants to share a few words. So take it away, mate.
Thanks, Andy. Hope you enjoyed the vid, guys. We're looking forward to sharing much more info with you all. We've got more on Dawn of Ragnarok, some new weapons including 2 very cool katanas that Ipsarp has found, and a lot more coming up. Cheers.
What an absolute legend. Cheers as well, mate. And he's absolutely right. We've got lots more information coming up. So if that does interest you, it may be worth clicking the notification bell so you can find your way back here easily. Also, if you haven't done so already, come join our awesome Discord community of over 600 members. It would be great to see you in the lobby. And I think that'll do it for this one. I really do hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'm sure I will catch you in the next one. But as usual, coffee's on me.